Alrighty, welcome to another episode of Outside the Letterbox. I'm Joe,
And I'm Nick.
and we are here without Paul today. He wasn't able to make it, but we have a pretty full episode lined up today. A lot of fun stuff, movie talk, that kind of stuff. That's what we're talking about, right? Movies?
I think so.
Alright, so make sure we're not like a book club or something like that. Alright.
Book you ever read?
Well, I'm currently in the middle of reading Dune. I mean, I haven't read it in like 3 months, but that still counts.
Okay.
So today we have lined up. We're gonna talk about usually, as usual, just some of the movie stuff we watched, some movies that we watched this past week. We're gonna move on to some recent film news, and then our film of the night is a surprise. Actually, it's not really, because I'm sure it'll be the thumbnail when Paul puts this thing up. We're talking about Kingsman tonight.
Oh, not 50 Shades of Grey?
No, did that come out?
What?
Is that like the sequel to Harold and the Purple Crayon or something like that?
You're telling me I went to the wrong movie this weekend?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Nick. Yeah, well, I mean, like we can review it as if we're talking about the same movie. You know, that
Dang
still works. No, we're not talking about frickin' 50 Shades of Grey or whatever.
Thank goodness.
We watched a much well, I'm not gonna say expletive, whatever adjective movie. I don't know. I'm drinking tea right now. All right. So Nick, tell me, what did you watch this past week?
What have I watched this week? So last night I had the fortunate experience to be at the New Beverly when they showed a Bob Fosse double feature. For those of you who don't know, Bob Fosse was a famous dancer, choreographer, and director. You know, really famous on Broadway. He famously, I think back in 1972, won a Tony for Best Directing, an Oscar for Best Directing, and then he won a third other award. But like, so he's crazy famous for his skills, and so he's directed a couple movies. He directed Cabaret, but the two movies that they showed last night were All That Jazz and Lenny, and I had seen both movies before. All That Jazz I wasn't all that crazy about the first time I saw it.
Were you not all that jazzed about it?
I was not all that jazzed about it. No, something about it either just like didn't work for me or didn't gel. It was like too abstract, too indulgent, whatever. And then Lenny, which is about the comedian Lenny Bruce, who kind of challenged the social taboos and the obscenity laws of, I think, the 50s, and kind of paved the way for future stand-up comedians like George Carlin, Richard Pryor to say whatever they wanted to. I remember enjoying that movie. So going into it, my whole idea was to see if was kind of to give All That Jazz a fair shake, because even though I didn't care for it, I knew a lot of people who did, and like it recently got put on the Criterion Collection last year, and there've been a lot of people who've been talking about it in like the past year or so. So it's kind of one of those movies where it's like, did I, was there something I was missing? So I kind of wanted to go in and figure that out, and then I was like, oh, and then there's Lenny, which obviously I've already seen and already liked. So either way, if I don't like All That Jazz again, I'll get at least one movie that I like out of the whole deal. So funny thing is I came out of that double feature now loving All That Jazz and now hating Lenny.
Oh wow.
Because like I said, like just something clicked this time with All That Jazz. Like it's still kind of overindulgent and kind of in the third act, without spoiling anything, there's a point where they get to the hospital and it just kind of slows down until the end of the movie. Like it's still good, but it just feels like, all right, we're taking too much time. Let's get stuff moving. But it's really well done, and Roy Scheider basically plays a stand-in for Bob Fosse. The whole movie is basically a very thinly veiled like biography of the time when he was simultaneously editing Lenny and choreographing a show on Broadway, and kind of the frustrations and insecurities he was feeling as an artist during that whole ordeal. And almost like nothing's literal in the movie. Like everything kind of exists in kind of this like present. Um, it's very hard to explain without seeing it, but the movie kind of never feels like it's multiple scenes. It kind of like starts and then it ends. It doesn't. There aren't like moments where you stop and it's like, oh, now we're in this scene. It's just like the pace is always moving, so that it just kind of feels like it's one continuous piece. Um, and so coming out of it was just like, oh man, like it all works for me now. So then I went into Lenny, and I, it's kind of an ugly movie. Like it's really well shot in black and white. But the problem with the movie is that Lenny Bruce was kind of this really entertaining stand-up comedian, and then he got arrested so many times and whatever. And basically at the end of his stand-up career, he was basically just reading the transcripts from his trial and stuff. But the movie spends so much time on his downfall that he just comes off as a jerk the whole time. So it's like, no matter what good came out of his efforts, of freedom of speech or whatever, like I didn't really care at the end of the movie because he wasn't funny. He was just a jerk. So it's a good Dustin Hoffman performance, but like otherwise, it's kind of hard to recommend. Like it looks cool, but you can just like look up the trailer and and get that vibe for it. So it was really kind of a weird experience. I've never had that where you go in watching two movies and you have one opinion of them, and then you come out and then they flipped.
Yeah, well, you should watch them again in another like 10 years or so and see if you still have the same opinion.
That would be pretty great. Like just like every single time, it just flips flops. Like I can like one, but I can't like the other. It's like the scales of justice or whatever.
Well, this past week also, or I guess in the past couple of weeks, I went to the cinemas as well and checked out a couple of movies. They were not old classics. They were new, not classics, I guess you'd say. I watched, first off, Project Almanac, which is a found footage movie. The only reason I had to see that was because it was a found footage movie. Because I have to see everything found footage for some reason. It's just the way I am. I'm just drawn to these most of the time terrible movies. But Project Almanac.
That's a bad disease you have, Joe.
I have an addiction. Project Almanac, though, it's fine. It's the best time travel found footage movie I've seen.
Are there others?
Actually, you know what? That is a lie. I can think of another found footage movie that deals with time travel that I like better than this. So wow, it even fails at its own a little genre that it barely fits into.
Wait, didn't one of the Paranormal Activity movies involve time travel or something?
I don't remember. I sat through I think the first what is there like 3 or 4 of them. I barely even remember them.
I feel like the end of the latest one somehow involved time travel, but I don't remember.
What, you mean the new one, the Hispanic one?
Oh, maybe, but I didn't actually see that one.
I don't know.
Heard about that.
I watched about half of that one, and then I walked out and got a refund.
Did you really?
Yeah, we did. Well, the guy I was seeing it with got a motion sickness actually, so we ended up walking out halfway through.
Wow.
Project Almanac. It's fine. It feels like it was made by some guys who were Back to the Future fans, and they're like, you know what? Let's make this movie with time travel, but make it with the kids are filming everything and find the camera, and the camera goes time traveling, and then you need to like fix the past, and they go partying and stuff. I don't know. It's decent. If you like found footage movies, this is a very decent found footage movie. That's the best I can probably say for it. Just the fact that it was found footage made it a little bit more interesting, I guess, than if it was just shot straight, because there's nothing really in this movie worth making it stand out from any other time travel movie out there. So props to them, I guess. The other one that I saw was the Spongebob movie, Sponge Out of Water, which was very interesting to me because I did not grow up with SpongeBob. In fact, I knew about SpongeBob and I had friends who watched it as a kid. I just never got into it. I didn't have the TV station, I didn't have access to the TV station that it was playing on, and I just never really got the appeal back then. Although I heard that the first movie was really good. But
yeah, I feel like that was the same thing with me, which is like, my grandma had cable, so if I wanted to watch it, it was over there. I remember a couple episodes because it like started like 99, 2000. So I remember like a couple of the early episodes, but I didn't really keep up watching it. But I have a ton of friends who sound like they're still into it. I don't know, but apparently it's still very popular.
Yeah. It was just one of those really popular shows, one of the really popular things that I just never got into. It was kind of like believe it or not, I actually never got into Pokemon as a kid either. I had lots of friends who were really into Pokemon and that kind of stuff.
All my friends were into Digimon. No, not Pokemon, surprisingly, which was always weird to me because Digimon always seemed like the blatant. No, it wasn't Digimon. They were into Yu-Gi-Oh. That's what it was.
Wow, those all came after Pokemon. Wait, how old are you?
What?
How many years younger? How many years younger than me are you?
I'm like 2 years younger than you.
Uh, okay, gotcha. So Digimon, whatever. I don't know. I didn't follow any of them, I have no idea. But anyways, SpongeBob. I enjoyed the non sequitur humor. It's got floating dolphins from the future with British accents that shoot lasers out of their blowholes. That kind of stuff is kind of fun, I guess.
That sounds amazing.
That was probably the best part of the movie. Right there, I just spoiled the whole movie for you. That's the best part of the movie. Right there. But I really I don't know. I feel like this format fits better for a short 20-minute TV series as opposed to a feature-length film because I had a blast with the first 15 minutes and then it just grew really stale. So
I do have a question and something I think Paul and I brought up on the podcast last week, but we couldn't confirm because neither of us had seen the movie. But so the way the trailer plays out makes it seem like the first act is 2D animation and then the rest of the movie is the live action 3D stuff. But I've heard that the live action 3D stuff doesn't actually happen until the very end of the movie.
I'd say probably a good third of the movie is in the live action land.
Which is crazy because the trailer makes it seem like that's the movie, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I thought the same thing. To be perfectly honest, going into it, I was really not looking forward to the live action stuff. I was like, man, I really like this style of animation, so I was really looking forward to that. But yeah, it's not until like maybe a good hour into the movie that it turns into the live action 2D stuff. And to be fair, the live action stuff is really funny too.
But so what is the rest of the movie about then?
They're trying to get their burgers back from Antonio Banderas as a pirate.
But isn't that the live action part?
Yeah, but well, it's more or less the whole plot of the movie is them trying to find out where the secret ingredient went. I mean, when I say the last third of the movie takes place in the live action world, really honestly, they kind of intercut the live action stuff in with the animated stuff at a couple points because the movie opens up with Antonio Banderas telling these seagulls a story of SpongeBob SquarePants.
Oh, okay.
He's like reading it out of a book basically, but then eventually, like about again like 2/3 into the movie, his storybook him reading the storybook and SpongeBob's actual world come together basically. So it was a little confusing at first, but they bring it all together in the end, and they explain why they're 3D in the real world and all that kind of stuff too. They get magical dolphins and stuff.
Gotcha. That makes more sense.
So yeah, there is a good chunk of the live action stuff in there, but it's not as much as the animated stuff, which made me happy. And it's all good, so it was all fine. If you have an attention span of a 5-year-old, the movie will probably hold your attention during the entire thing.
You just insulted whatever adults probably went and saw SpongeBob.
Hey, I went to go see it too, so screw y'all. So yeah, that's what I watched.
That's what you watched. All right.
That's what I watched. I watched a whole lot more, but I don't want to talk about what I watched forever.
So you want to move into film news?
Let's move into film news.
Awesome. Do you want me to start off with this first bit?
Go ahead.
So this week, probably the biggest news this week, and depending on how the rest of the year goes, because it's still very early in the year, this could be one of the top news pieces to come out of Hollywood in 2015, is that Spider-Man, after spending years at Sony in his own standalone franchise, is going to be joining the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But there's a big asterisk next to that. Marvel has not bought Spider-Man back. They've just reached a deal with Sony, I guess, to use Spider-Man. So, like, Spider-Man will appear in Avengers movies, and then there will be like a solo movie, which will technically be a Sony movie, but the Marvel people will be involved in it. I don't know. The language is very confusing for um, the memo or the press release that they sent out this week. It's like, wait, how does this all connect? And like Marvel characters will now, or cinematic universe characters will now appear in the Sony movies, possibly, or it's all very confusing, but all very exciting.
The main thing I got out of that was Sony has been trying to figure out what to do with Spider-Man. They haven't figured it out yet, so they finally listened to the fans and said, "Hey, Marvel, we'll let you use him in a couple of movies, but we need to be in charge of making sure that we okay everything that he does or says or whatever in the movies." Which I'm fine with because I mean, like I feel like Marvel knows what they're doing with him. Hopefully,
Yeah,
Sony will won't screw this up.
yeah, yeah. I think I'm just more confused about how it all connect. Like, I get that, like, Spider-Man will probably appear in. I think they say maybe Captain America 3 will probably be the first time he appears, and then he'll be in like Avengers Infinity Wars. But there's a Spider-Man solo movie which is coming out in 2017, which is not the Amazing Spider-Man 3, at least as far as we know, because I think they kind of came out and said that Andrew Garfield is done, Mark Webb is done, all those people are done. Um, uh, so I'm just curious if like those movies will be firmly connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or if they'll like kind of sort of be connected, and if like I don't know. It's weird because then, like, the thing with all the Marvel movies is that, what happens in Iron Man affects what happens in a Thor movie or a Captain America movie or whatever. But if Spider-Man is still technically at Sony, are the implications of what happens in these Spider-Man movies, do they still affect the greater Marvel universe? Or I don't know. Um,
I would be extremely surprised if are you talking about the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies? If they're
no,
gonna be
no, no, no. I'm talking about these new ones.
well,
Because
I think it's pretty well said that these new ones are going to be set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe because for one thing, Spider-Man's going to be in another Marvel movie,
Mhm.
which we're all presuming is Captain America: Civil War, which they haven't officially announced it yet. But I mean, I'd be extremely surprised if that's not the one that they got him for. Um, and since he's still at Marvel and they're making a standalone movie, I mean, like we don't know how many they're actually going to be making, or if they're even going to be making more than one.
Yeah, and that's the huge thing because like this is more, like I said, Marvel hasn't bought the rights back for Spider-Man, so this is more like in the 30s and 40s when studios would loan actors out. I feel
Yeah.
like, um, so it's just like how many movies is Sony loaning Marvel to Marvel? Is it like as long as we need them to help us rehabilitate it, or like because I guess another important thing is that um, since Marvel already has the merchandise and rights to Spider-Man, they'll make money on the toys no matter what. But Sony can only make money on the movies. So I guess going forward, Sony only is the only one who will make money on the Spider-Man solo movies, but Marvel will make all the money on the merchandising and any movie that Spider-Man is in that is not a Spider-Man movie.
That is so freaking confusing.
I know. That's what.
Too much going on. I just want my damn Spider-Man in a damn Avengers movie.
Exactly. Exactly. But I'm excited for it. If only that we get the Marvel take on it, because I know a lot of people aren't crazy about another origin story, and I don't really want another origin story. And
We're not making one either.
I think Spider-Man is well known enough that you could do um, something similar to what they did in the Edward Norton Incredible Hulk movie, where it kind of like opens up, it does like a montage, kind of how like Spider-Man 2 and 3 kind of go through his origin real quick just to catch people up.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. It's like doing another Batman origin story. We all know Batman's origin story. You don't need to give us another one. Just give us a new Batman movie with a new version of Batman. We'll get it.
yeah, so yeah, I hope they do that, and then I hope they find a really cool connection for Peter Parker in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because like in the comics, one of the famous things is that Peter Parker was a kid who grew up with Captain America as his idol. So in the comic book version of Civil War, it's kind of a big deal when they find themselves against each other. Um, so it'd be interesting in the movie if Peter Parker is like, hey, I was this normal kid growing up in New York, and then the events of Avengers 1 happened, and I was like, oh my gosh, these heroes, and they're my idols and whatever. Then he gets bit by a radioactive spider and then gets inspired to do whatever. Like, it'd just be kind of cool if they found a way to somehow include that kind of those events as like an inspiration for him.
That's just a really cool idea. That also explained how he wasn't involved in any of the other stuff that's been happening in the Marvel universe so far.
Yeah, because I mean, if they go by, if they're starting from the beginning again, he'll be like 15, 16, 17. So it's not like, they're going to be like, hey, why weren't you at New York 2 or 3 years ago? It's like, well, because I was 13 at the time, like,
Yeah.
you know, yeah. I'm very intrigued to see what they do, who they get to write, direct, star, because I think that's something that the Amazing Spider-Man movies had right, was that hey, they had a good director, they had a pretty good cast, even though like I wasn't the biggest fan of I don't know how you describe Andrew Garfield's take on Peter Parker. Like I thought it was good, but um, it's not kind of my preferred take on the character.
Do we need to pull up the podcast of Amazing Spider-Man 2 again, Nick, to sell
No,
people just
no.
how not on board you were with it?
Yeah, no, we're no. I I actually feel bad now. Like if I had known this was going to happen when Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out, I just wouldn't have seen Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Now it's all for naught.
Now it's all for nothing. But we did get a good podcast out of it.
We did.
So yeah,
That was a great one.
so I just hope we get a good movie out of it, because by the time this comes out, it'll be um, over 10 years since we got a good Spider-Man movie, or like one that I can like say with confidence is a good Spider-Man movie.
Yeah. So yeah, let's hold out for that.
Yep.
Next up on our list of news items to talk about is the Halloween, not remake, not a reboot, not a reimagining, but a re-collaboration, whatever in the living fuck that means.
Yeah, that's the main reason I kind of put that up as a news point, is because we're used to remakes, we're used to reboots, we're used to reimagining. So if they said they were going to do another Halloween, it'd be like whatever. We kind of expect that at this point. But the fact that they're saying it's a recalibration makes me go, I don't know what that is.
It makes me go, they're doing a remake, but they don't want to call it a remake because people are sick and tired of remakes. And they don't want to have their names tied with the John Carpenter remakes because those movies by now have kind of a stigma against them.
Oh, you mean the Rob Zombie ones?
Or sorry, Rob Zombie. Who did I say?
You said John Carpenter.
Oh, well, that one's a great one. Oh my gosh, I have John Carpenter on the mind. I watched Assault on Precinct 13 recently. Great movie, but
Um,
to be perfectly honest, I really don't have a dog in this fight because I've never been the biggest Halloween fan, to be honest. I love John Carpenter's movies, but Halloween isn't remotely my favorite. I think it's a fine movie. I have nothing against it. It's just not my thing particularly. But
yeah, I know Paul's a big Halloween fan,
we should have had him on this.
and a really not big fan of Rob Zombie's Halloween. But
Oh yeah, I've been thinking about that one. I can't freaking stand that one.
to me, recalibration says two things to me. One seems really likely, and the other one seems less likely, but I can hope. So the first one for me, basically, to me, will probably be in the vein of I think it was the most recent Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, which was like a sequel to the original one, but not really like it's kind of a sequel to it, where it's like, all right, the events of the agreed upon first movie happened. This is years later, and this is our own take on a different type of follow up.
Yeah.
So more a reboot of like the sequels as opposed to the whole story. My second thought, which I don't think would happen, but I hope I have hope for, is that Halloween originally wasn't supposed to be Michael Myers dependent. John Carpenter, I think the original idea was, hey, we'll have this movie franchise called Halloween. Every year it'll be a new movie, but it'll be a different plot. But then Halloween 1 became successful, and of course there's that ending where Michael Myers, escapes, and they were like, oh, you should come back and do a second one. So John Carpenter was like, I won't direct it, but I'll write it because you guys are going to pay me. So they did that, and then they thought they killed off Michael Myers there, and then they made Halloween 3: Season of the Witch, which has nothing to do with Michael Myers, but then that didn't do so well. So then they went back and brought Michael Myers back into the fold, and that's what the franchise has been since then. So there's part of me that's hoping that we'll finally get what the Halloween franchise was supposed to be, but I highly doubt that's going to happen.
Yeah, just just imagine actually back when they made the first Halloween movie, if they had ended the series with the first movie, just having that ending there, like Halloween would be the ultimate campfire spook story, just kind of about the killer they got the supernatural killer they got away.
Yeah, yeah.
I kind of wish they left it at that now. Although then again, I hadn't seen any of the Halloween sequels, so I've heard they're varying degrees of quality, but
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't tell you which one it was, but I feel like I've seen huge chunks of the sequels on cable TV like years ago. But yeah, I couldn't tell you which one it was.
yeah. What would be a cool idea, and what they might be hinting at with this quote unquote recalibration or a recollaboration, is maybe they're trying to, well, I'm like, obviously they're just trying to remake it or redo it or do their own thing on it, but they're maybe they're trying to make a new version of Halloween, taking the original story, which is really kind of classic slasher material. It's one of the original slashers, and just kind of updating it into a modern into a way that a modern audience can appreciate it more.
Maybe.
Which I'm a little bit worried about, because I'm not a big fan of a lot of the horror movies that come out these days, except for from a few choice filmmakers like James Wan and Scott Derrickson.
Yeah.
But we'll see. It's the writers of the Saw sequels, so it should be.
Yeah.
Great.
What is that? What do you think that holds for us?
It honestly kind of worries me, because I'm not a big fan of the Saw sequels. I marathoned them last year. I barely even remember them at this point. I remember I had like strong opinions of them back when I first saw them, but at this point, it's got kind of all blend together for me.
Yeah. Here's a question I have before we move on, though. Is so movies that are iconic usually have like these iconic titles for them. Do you think Halloween would have been as iconic if they had gone with the original title, which was The Babysitter Killer or something like that? It was, yeah, I think it was The Babysitter Killers or something.
I honestly don't think so, because I would bet you that a good chunk of the people who originally saw the movie just saw it because, like, oh, it's a Halloween movie. Look, it's Halloween. Let's go watch this movie. It's Halloween time.
The Babysitter Murders, that's what it was originally called.
That would be amazing. I mean, I would watch that, but I don't know who else would.
Yeah. I feel like that would go into like a Silent Night, Deadly Night type of territory, you know?
And thus John Carpenter's career died.
All right. Moving on from that, we have a ton of trailer stuff, so we'll try to keep it brief. But the first trailer, and probably the best, or at least my personal favorite, was the Man from U.N.C.L.E. trailer. For those of you who don't know, The Man from U.N.C.L.E. was a spy TV show from the 1960s that starred Robert Vaughn, and it was about an American agent and a Soviet agent who team up to tackle world-threatening scenarios. It was kind of one of the first post-James Bond, like, oh, hey, James Bond's successful. Let's try to tap into that success. And so this is a movie that's actually been in various stages of development for a while. It was actually originally supposed to be a Steven Soderbergh movie with George Clooney, and then that didn't happen. So then Guy Ritchie took over, which is a step down, but not maybe in a bad way, because I actually kind of dig Guy Ritchie. My biggest worry going into the movie, though, was the two lead actors, Henry Cavill, who plays Superman and Man of Steel, and then Armie Hammer from The Lone Ranger and The Social Network. But I actually think the trailer is actually pretty great, and I actually think Henry Cavill especially, really sells himself with that American accent. He's like super charming in the trailer, which was like, man, after Man of Steel, I didn't think I didn't think he had it in him. And then Armie Hammer, some people are complaining about the Russian accent. I don't have an ear for Russian accents, so it's perfectly fine for me. So I'm actually really excited for the movie. It previously was not really on my radar. Like, I knew it was coming out, and I was like, all right, we'll get to that when we get to that. But now that the trailers come out, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, yeah. Henry Cavill and Armie Hammer have two things in common that just kind of made this trailer for me. One is they have strong jaw lines and they kind of look like those comic book characters from the 1950s and the 1960s. You know,
Yeah.
almost like how Superman was drawn back in the day. I know we're talking about Henry Cavill here, but whatever. I'm not talking about Superman here. Um, and they both rock suits really really well,
Mhm.
especially as like spies running around and that kind of stuff. And the movie looks like a lot of fun. Again, it wasn't on my radar at all before I saw the trailer, but I haven't seen the original TV show either. But the movie looks like it could be a lot of fun, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Especially, yeah, it's actually funny that we're talking about this on the Kingsman episode because
Hmm.
Kingsman comes out, we have The Man from Uncle, and then the new James Bond movie Spectre coming out at the end of the year, and it seems like they're all kind of in different ways um, throwbacks to old fashioned '60s spy movies because especially with like Skyfall, it seemed like the James Bond movie was finally kind of moving out of the post Jason Bourne inspired Bond movies back to kind of the classic stuff. And The Man from Uncle obviously is from that same type of time period. And then Kingsman, as we'll get to in a few minutes, is very much kind of an homage to the '60s and '70s spy movies.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I love that stuff. It's a lot of fun. It's good action. It's good fun action. That's the only thing I can say about it.
Yeah. All right, moving on is the trailer for the new Judd Apatow movie Trainwreck, starring Amy Schumer. The kind of the main reasons I'm kind of interested in this is one, this seems like a change of pace for Judd Apatow. This is his first movie that he hasn't written himself. Amy Schumer wrote it, so it's kind of interesting that it seems like it's not his same normal bag of tricks. It's not the same actors who usually appear in his movies. It seems like it could be a nice change of pace, especially since a lot of people kind of thought after Funny People and This Is 40 that he was kind of, uh, you know, sticking his head up his ass, and kind of,
Yeah.
throwing his family into his movies and kind of like, it was almost too close to home for a lot of people. It was felt like a lot of rich white people problems or whatever. So it'll be interesting to see if this is anything different. I think the main thing, or the two main things, I think that I took away and I'm looking forward to the most though is Bill Hader as a leading man in a romantic comedy, which is kind of great because I love Bill Hader, but he usually gets the best friend role, and then it's great to see that in the best friend role we have LeBron James, who is not known for acting at all, but is kind of funny in the trailer. So
Yeah, I mean, I've never really been into Judd Apatow movies. Again, I don't have anything against them. It's just they're not my sort of humor, I guess. Uh, but yeah, I did notice at least judging from the trailers for previous Judd Apatow movies, it seemed like this is a real change of pace for him, which maybe what he needs. I don't know. You're a bigger fan of him than I am.
I think I'm more a fan of the people who have come off his success than his movies. Like even though I love 4 Year Old Virgin and Knocked Up, like I think I'm more, I like more like the stuff that Nicholas Stoller puts out, or the stuff that Seth Rogen's done, or the stuff that um, all the people who kind of came up along with him went on to do.
Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like SNL.
Kind of like SNL. Yeah. Yep. And then after that, we have the Aloha trailer, which is the new Cameron Crowe movie. Cameron Crowe, for me, is kind of hit or miss. I love Almost Famous. I think Jerry Maguire is a pretty good movie. Um, did not care for Elizabethtown at all. I still have not seen We Bought a Zoo, but the trailer for this looks actually pretty good. Um, there are a lot of rumors that the movie's not that great from all the hacked Sony emails, but I don't know. I think it looks good. I think it's got a great cast.
Yeah, the most interesting thing to me about this trailer, and I just watched this trailer like literally right before we started doing the podcast, is Bradley Cooper's role in the movie, or not his role, but just kind of the way he plays his character, because it's making me start to think that Bradley Cooper has a rolling roster of like 3 or 4 characters. I think he does in every one of his movies. And this is like a variation of his character from Silver Linings Playbook mixed with a little bit of American Sniper in it or something like that.
This is American Sniper Goes Hawaiian.
It's American Sniper. It's the comedy version of American Sniper. But no, yeah, it has a great cast in it. Bradley Cooper looks great. Then again, he rocks whatever role he's in currently. At the moment, he plays kind of the dashing yet lovable goofball really really well. So he'll probably do great in this one. He looks like it's great.
All right, and then the last trailer we have is for Guillermo del Toro's new movie, Crimson Peak. Joe, I think you're a bigger Del Toro fan than I am. So what did you think?
I am actually really excited for this movie. The trailer completely won me over. This is Del Toro going back to his horror roots, which I'm totally okay with. One thing I love about Del Toro's movies is that he mixes CG with like live action puppet effects really really well. And whether his movies are any good or not, they always look spectacular. And this movie looks like it's very very atmospheric, which is great. I love how overly stylized everything is too. So I'm really looking forward to this one. It looks like it could be really really creepy and fun as a Del Toro movie.
Yeah, I liked how the trailer didn't rely on jump scares. Like it just relied on the imagery, which was really cool. I think my only problem is like it didn't creep me out yet. You know. So I think I'm definitely intrigued, but I think I'm waiting for more to get sold on it.
Yeah. The trailer looked like Del Toro watched Francis Ford Coppola's Twix, and he was like, "I love your color palette. Your movie's shit, though."
I would love if that was an actual conversation.
That would have been hilarious. Tell me, how did you shoot Twix? I'm really interested.
I also think it's kind of interesting that this is actually going to get away with an R rating already.
That surprises you?
Yeah.
For a Del Toro movie?
For a big budget horror movie, yeah.
But it's Del Toro. He's known for his R-rated movies.
Is he?
He did Pan's Labyrinth. Devil's Backbone was rated R, right?
Yeah, but those were both his foreign language movies with a lot smaller budgets.
He did. I don't know. He did other movies. I mean, how many? Well, I guess he has done Hellboy. I wasn't even thinking about Hellboy, but those movies are great. But those are a totally different genre of movie from the rest of this stuff.
Yeah, I think it's just like the caliber and the size that he's going for surprised me that he was able to get away with an R rating, especially because wasn't his adaptation of At the Mountains of Madness got shut down because it was he wanted it to be R. And then they were like, if you want it to be R, it has to be a lower budget. And then he was like, okay, I lowered the budget. And then they were like, oh, we're not going to do the movie anyway. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never really thought about that. I mean, it just never really occurred to me that it would be anything other than R. But you got a good point there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that's our trailers. That's our film talk for the day. We're done.
We're done. All right.
All right, I guess we can move on to the main event, the Thunderdome of our conversation.
Two will enter, one will leave. Is that how it goes?
Except we're only talking about one movie, though.
Wait. Oh yeah, we are.
So one film enters, one film either leaves or it stays in the Thunderdome, I guess.
So why did you make the Thunderdome reference?
I don't know. I'm making a segue.
It was a terrible segue.
It was the most fucking terrible segue ever.
For anyone who knows anything about Mad Max 3 Beyond Thunderdome, easily the best of the Mad Max movies.
Whoa.
That was a terrible segue.
Whoa. That was a terrible... Never mind. Anyway. Let's talk about Kingsman. So, Nick, how much did you like Kingsman?
I liked Kingsman a lot.
I liked it a lot, too.
Yes. For those of you who don't know, Kingsman... I should probably pull up IMDb before I start trying to tell people what the movie's about.
It's about spies and Samuel L. Jackson, and shit blows up, and people get stabbed and punched, and there's like a kid, and he wears a suit, and they fight crime. It's awesome.
Okay, the official plot synopsis. A spy organization recruits an unrefined but promising street kid into the agency's ultra-competitive training program, just as a global threat emerges from a twisted tech genius. Yes, so that is what Kingsman's about, and I enjoyed it a lot. I'm actually, I think I'm a pretty big fan of Matthew Vaughn's films. X-Men First Class, I still think is probably the best X-Men movie. So this Kingsman to me actually felt like X-Men First Class meets Kick-Ass, but as an homage to the Sean Connery and Roger Moore eras of James Bond.
This movie was the best Edgar Wright movie that Edgar Wright never directed.
Yes, that's actually when I was watching the movie because there are a couple of fights in the movie, and I was like, this reminds me of the fights in The World's End.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, very kinetic, very hyper violent, a lot of fun. I do have one problem with one of the fight sequences, which is also the best fight sequence in the movie, but I think we need to wait to spoilers to get to that. But okay, what did you think of Colin Firth in the movie? Because Colin Firth is not known for being an action star, and yet here he is, front and center, being a badass.
I just
kind of awesome.
I just love the smug way he delivers all his lines and the way he just kind of relishes this role, which I'm sure he doesn't get roles like this very, very frequently. So like it felt like he was playing a role that his kids could watch when they grow older and just say like, oh yeah, that was in this fun kick-ass movie. I just love how it's kind of like every corny delivery he just kind of gives it with like a wink and a smile, and the way he holds himself in the suit and pulls out the gadgets and just has fun. He's like a kid in a candy shop in this movie, in a role that he rarely gets to play. So it was a lot of fun seeing him in this movie.
Well, Colin Firth does look really good in a suit.
He looks
I will say that. This whole movie, this movie is basically an advertisement for suits.
Yeah, it really is.
Everyone wears a suit in this movie except Samuel L. Jackson.
You know, he wears a suit at one point.
Oh yeah, he does.
With a dope ass hat.
But for the for the dope ass hat. But yeah, for the most part, he's a hip man.
I just love Samuel L. Jackson in this movie. By the way, it's a different side to Samuel L. Jackson. It's him still playing the hyper violent villain character.
It's funny because I feel like nowadays we get two different types of Samuel L. Jackson performances. And the first are movies that he shows up and he cares about, which is, pretty much any Tarantino movie you can be guaranteed he's going to give a great performance in. Then the other types of performances are like hey, I like to work, give me a paycheck. But I feel like this one is firmly in the, hey, I showed up to work, I'm having fun, I'm getting paid, but I'm actually, putting an effort in. Yeah, and I think he's kind of a brilliant choice for this movie because you expect Samuel L. Jackson to be the badass, and to be, killing people and whatever, but instead he's the guy who has his henchmen go and do the dirty work for him. Which, speaking of henchmen, I think Samuel L. Jackson's character has a female henchman who has I don't know what they're called, but like I guess people now who instead of like fake legs or whatever, they have like these blades that help them run, and so she has those, except that she has knives attached to them that she uses to like decapitate people and slice them in half and chop off their limbs and stuff. And it's funny because she's totally meant to be like a homage to Jaws or the other great James Bond henchmen, and yeah, I think she might be better than most of the James Bond henchmen that we've ever had in that franchise.
She's certainly more effective.
Yes. Yeah, her fight scenes are pretty great.
Yeah, actually, the biggest surprise that I hear from people talking about this movie is they're surprised to hear that it's an R-rated action movie and how violent it is.
Well, I got two things on that. One is because I get that people are kind of surprised at that because the way the movie's sold, like I said before, it reminded me a lot of X-Men First Class, which Matthew Vaughn also directed because it's kind of about kids in training, Mm-hmm. So when you kind of look at it that way, it feels like it fits into the young adult genre that's kind of jumped up in the past couple of years, whether it's Divergent or Hunger Games or whatever. Like it feels like, oh, like it's these kid adventure movies. So it doesn't surprise me that people are surprised that it's R-rated. But at the same time, with the exception of a few moments, it did not feel as much of an R-rated movie as either it could have been or as much of an R-rated movie as Matthew Vaughn has gone for before. I felt like, with the exception of a few moments, like the violence wasn't that graphic or whatever, which is
certainly
bad.
wasn't.
I guess just like you kind of expect, if a movie knows it's going to get an R rating, it's just going to go full on out there. But this one actually kind of had some restraint in some areas, which was interesting.
It certainly wasn't very bloody, I noticed.
Yeah, and I think, like, for me, that's I know there are a lot of other things that get movies R ratings. Like, obviously, like, this movie has a lot of profanity in it, but that kind of, like, once it starts, you kind of just like, oh, it's just people saying stuff. For me, in a movie, like, if something's like graphically violent, like, that's something I'll notice and be like, yeah, there's no way that could have been PG-13. As opposed to when people are just like swearing and stuff, it's like, oh, that's easy to take out if you had to. So yeah, like the violence in this movie didn't feel like it was, as over the top, or, well, it was certainly over the top, but it wasn't as graphic as it could have been, which was kind of surprising in a weird way.
Except for one scene in particular, I think the one fight scene we're both thinking about.
Oh yeah.
Surprisingly graphic.
Yeah, but the thing with, and we'll get to this in more detail in spoilers, but the thing with that fight sequence is it goes by so fast, like everything's moving so fast that it feels like when an act of violence happens, you don't have a lot of time to kind of like dwell on it.
Yeah, that's true. I guess, yeah.
Let me think. Any other performances that stood out for you? I got a couple, but I'm curious what you thought.
Who else was in this movie? There was Colin Firth. There was Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
There was what's his name from Pirates of the Caribbean? Was at the very beginning. He was.
Jack Davenport. Yeah. I mean, we can talk a little bit, because talking about him kind of involves a spoiler, but he was a pleasant surprise.
I was not expecting that. That was so much fun.
I wasn't expecting him either. Mark Hamill is in the movie.
Yeah, he was great.
He's great. He's only got 2 scenes. It was actually funny, because I saw this movie a month ago at a screening hosted by him, and it was kind of funny because he came out and was like, oh, hey, I'm in this movie, but I'm only in like 2 scenes, so don't get that excited, But he's pretty great in it, in just like 2 scenes, and it's different from. I feel like it's more true of Mark Hamill as we kind of know him today, as opposed to what, when people think of Mark Hamill, they kind of think of Luke Skywalker. But if you kind of pay attention to his career, that he's kind of way more out there as an actor. He's way more cartoonish and whatever. So this character kind of firmly fits into that, the rest of his roles. And it kind of made me get more small Mark Hamill roles in kind of these big budget movies. Because obviously he'll be, he's going to have a leading role in the new Star Wars movie, and then might have, a supporting role after that. But I kind of hope he sticks around and does other types of movies, and kind of has some sort of like career resurgence, because I just think he's a great guy, in person, and then on the big screen. It's always nice to see him show up.
Yeah, it was just really nice to see him actually in person in a movie, because I honestly can't remember the last movie I saw him in where he's playing a live action person as opposed to an animated voice. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. One other person that I actually thought was pretty great in the movie was Mark Strong. And I think the main reason I really like Mark Strong in this movie is because Mark Strong is really known for playing villains. Like, I think there was like a 2-3 year period where all he played was villains, because he was the villain in Ridley Scott's Robin Hood. He was the villain in Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes. He was the villain in Green Lantern. And so it was nice to see him kind of play the Q of this franchise, and just kind of give him kind of a lot more lighthearted moments. I don't know. It was just kind of a nice change of pace.
Yeah, it was. Well, I mean, he has the bill in the voice for a really good villain, but here he's kind of playing a lighter, dignified yet I don't want to say goofy, but he has kind of a comedic charm to him in this movie, despite the gravity he has in the role.
What's the thing I liked about the world that they created in this movie, is that the Kingsman organization is very small, and all the members go by names of people from the King Arthur legend. So the person in charge of the organization is, I think, referred to as Arthur. Mark Strong's character is kind of the Q, like in in James Bond he has Q. So in this movie they have Merlin. Um, and in I think what is it? Colin Firth is Galahad, I think.
I think that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the spot that they're opening for is for a future Lancelot, and it's just like I'm a sucker for stuff like that. So I thought that was a cool touch.
Oh yeah, and the whole thing about their suits are armor for them and that kind of stuff. That was great.
Yeah, yeah, I thought it was pretty great.
Yeah.
Um, I think any complaints, any non-spoilery complaints that you have, Joe?
Uh, Not really, to be perfectly honest. I mean, like a few of the jokes, a few of the more off-color jokes, I felt like they didn't quite fit in the movie for some reason, which is weird because I knew it was from the guy who did Kick-Ass, but they were so infrequent that whenever they did come up, it felt a little jarring, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, there's one joke. Again, I think we'll talk about this in spoilers, but it kind of to me it kind of fit in kind of a larger problem that I think we can talk about, which is that the movie doesn't really do a lot for its female characters.
No, that is one complaint I do have actually.
Because like there's this really cool other girl who's training alongside Eggsy, the main character, and in the finale it feels like she doesn't really have much to do, like at all.
Yeah, yeah, I
Like
completely agree.
like she's very far removed from everything, and it's kind of like, oh man, like obviously she went through the same training as him, so it would have been cool to see her actually do some of the stuff that he gets to do.
Yeah.
And I felt like, especially because this is like a modern, I guess, kind of subversive look at those James Bond movies, it would have been interesting to have some more of the female characters actually kind of do something. And I mean, obviously, like Sam Jackson's henchwoman gets to do a lot, but it would have been nice for some of the other female characters to actually do stuff. Because yeah, like Eggsy's mom kind of is just like in a shitty position the whole movie. So
Yeah. You have Eggsy's mom who just kind of rolls over for everyone and just kind of like, no, no, please don't hurt him, that kind of stuff. You have the princess or the queen of Scandinavia or whatever.
yeah, I think she was a princess.
Yeah. Who starts off as a character where you're like, oh wow, she's really standing up to the bad guy, but then she's just kind of demoted to just kind of a crass joke towards the end.
Yeah.
And then you have Roxy, the other spy woman, who they set her up to be like, oh man, she's gonna have a really big part of the movie. This is gonna be really great. It's gonna be she's gonna have her own thing. And then, like you said in the climax, she's kind of delegated to, oh, you go off and do this thing. Us men will go, kick a lot of ass in the finale.
Yeah.
Which is kind of disappointing. So, yeah, that's probably the biggest complaint I have about the movie, which is, to be perfectly honest, a little understandable because the movies that they are being a send up to, kind of these James Bond spy movies, aren't that great towards women to begin with.
Yeah, but I guess because the movie, I think the movie has a lot to say about class, because the Kingsmen are they kind of have this ideal of being gentlemen and whatever, and Colin Firth's character, and the Kingsmen kind of look down on lower class people, and Eggsy's kind of this bridge between the lower class and then what the Kingsmen aspire to. And I don't know, I think it had some interesting things to say, and so it's just kind of a shame that its attitudes didn't extend towards other things in the movie. But
yeah, exactly, chivalry, basically.
Yeah.
Especially considering that, like, the whole movie they're talking about how manners maketh the man, and the movie literally ends on like a womanizing James Bond sex joke, basically. That's a little bit more crass for modern audiences.
Yeah. All right, so do we want to go into spoilers now?
I guess, why not?
Okay. All right, so from now on.
That church scene.
Yes, actually, okay, wait. I have a confession to make. So at the screening I was at, I really had to go to the bathroom during during the middle of the movie, and I knew the church scene was happening. So I was like, I can't miss this. So the church scene's happening, and I'm like, okay, this scene needs to hurry up so I can go. Church scene ends. I'm like, great, I come back, I miss Colin Firth getting killed.
Oh
Like
no!
I knew it happened, but I didn't actually see it happen.
So you see, like come back and like, man, Colin Firth kicked a ton of ass. And you come
I
back
knew it
and you're like, oh, we're mourning Colin Firth now. You
like
missed like one of the best. Like, oh man, Samuel Jackson shoots him in the face, and he's
I
like
know.
freaking out with
That's
blood.
what I hear. That's what I hear. But yeah, like I could tell because I knew it walking back into the room. I knew that's what happened, and I could tell when I was coming back to my seat that everyone was like, "This guy literally walked out at the worst possible moment."
It would, to be perfectly honest, it would have been worth missing the church scene to catch the ending of that. Although that scene was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So the church scene. The church scene is interesting because that's one of my two complaints about the movie, which is that like the scene is technically great, like it's insane, you
Yeah.
know. Um, but okay, so I always kind of feel uneasy in movies where like a plot device or something involves uh like some type of possession or like people getting taken over and not being able to control their actions or whatever. And
Hmm.
especially I can't remember what movie it is, but there's basically a movie I remember where like all these innocent people kind of get taken over and they start doing bad things, and then the moment they wake up they're like, wait, what happened? And then they all get killed. Like it's like they had no idea that they were doing all these bad things and whatever. And that's kind of what the whole plot is kind of set up on for the finales, that Sam Jackson's basically planted the he what was it, has these cell phones that'll turn people's minds into just like crazy people, and they'll all kill each other off so he can lower the population, to prevent global warming or something like that.
That's what all about the
um,
plot. It's all about global warming for him.
yeah, or something. So Colin Firth goes to this church, which is basically this Westboro Baptist-esque church of people, with full of hate speech and stuff. And he's in the church when they do the test for it. So his mind kind of gets warped around. So he starts doing terrible, violent things, and so do the people in the church. And it's weird for me because in that scene, Colin Firth technically isn't a good person. And even though this is going to sound really weird, even though the people in the church aren't good people either, like obviously they're full of hateful speak and whatever. But that being said, they weren't gonna do anything. Like they were just gonna like say stuff.
Yeah.
I know it sounds terrible to like try to defend them, but it's like it's not like they were like, oh, we hate all these people and we're gonna go like, we're gonna go, join a KKK rally and kill a bunch of black people. It's like, no, we're just sitting in our church, saying how much we hate, gay people and black people and whatever. So it was kind of I don't know, like in the moment I really enjoyed it, and then coming away from it I was like, there's something off about that scene, but I don't know what.
Yeah.
And I
So,
think
so
that's what it is that like it's not like, oh, it's the good guys who have to beat the bad guys or the good guys have to save good people from bad people. It was like, oh, it's just all bad people who can't control themselves. Like I don't know, it was really weird.
yeah. So for me, I think maybe from like I guess an ethical standpoint, I do have a little bit of a problem with that scene. Mainly because I mean like I understand how they played it up of kind of like the hero is taken over and he's not doing a good thing, and then he kills all these people and he comes out and he's uh like, oh my gosh, what have I done? I killed all these people. Um, but the problem with the movie in this scene, and this is also one of the things I loved about that scene, is that it's just so damn fun.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
which is a problem because I mean like halfway through the scene, halfway through the scene I was like laughing. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is hilarious, this is great. And I realized like, oh my gosh, he's totally like butchering these people in the worst possible ways, and they're dying painful deaths
Yeah, like it's
all
like
over the place, and these
yeah,
people
it's like
don't really deserve it.
yeah, it's like one of those things where it's like, yeah, they're terrible people, but it's like, it's the guy sitting in the corner, saying terrible things as opposed to the guy who's like, oh, I'm gonna go blow up a hospital.
Yeah,
Like I get why they were like, oh, like I could imagine, like I haven't read the comic book it's based on, but I can imagine they were like, oh, we need to come up with a group of people that are bad enough that people won't mind seeing them get killed. And like this is perfectly a justifiable group of people to be angry and mad at, but I feel like if you want to just kill all these people, I feel like you have to find a group of people instead who are actually planning to do something as opposed to just like protesting, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like it's kind of like watching God Bless America, where the main characters spend the entire movie just going around shooting people that annoy them. And yeah, it's kind of funny and whatnot. But that movie had kind of a downer note to it that said that what these people are doing isn't a good thing, and yeah, you kind of had fun watching them do these things, but in the end, it's not really justifiable. Whereas in this one, they try to do that, but at the same time, they're saying like, yeah, it wasn't justifiable, but those people were assholes, so they kind of had it coming to them.
Yeah, and
Um,
I actually bumped into Paul earlier today, and we didn't talk a lot about the movie because we didn't know whether he was going to be able to make it to podcast or not. But I did know that, and he kind of let me know that this was kind of the point in the movie that he wasn't he wasn't so sure about, which is interesting because I guess a lot of people are kind of feeling this way, and it kind of took me a while to. But of course, I saw the movie before a lot of reviews went out, so I was kind of living in my own head about the movie for a
yeah.
while.
Well,
Um,
what's the question is that would that scene have been better if they played it kind of more? I mean, like, like if they play it without Freebird playing in the background, essentially.
Okay,
Um,
that's another kind of valid point is that there's like these different layers to how that scene plays out and like what what kind of rubs you the wrong way, and playing Freebird over it is so awesome. But then again, it's the whole thing that we were talking about earlier. Like it's a really fun sequence, it's really terrifically done, but it's the wrong context, you
yeah,
know?
exactly. I mean, like fun as this movie was, I almost think that movie that moment would have played out better. Not from a technical standpoint, but just from a feeling better about enjoying the sequence standpoint, if they played it more somber and more like, holy shit, this guy needs to snap out of this because he's
Yeah,
fucking up all,
yeah, yeah,
you know. Even though it
yeah.
is a really fun movie, that would have been a really interesting scene and point to make, I think, in that movie, and I think it would have been, I think it would have fit into the movie despite the movie being so fun for the rest of it, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting because Mark Miller, who wrote the comic book for Kingsman and wrote the comic book for Kick-Ass, is he's very dark. And Matthew Vaughn, who obviously directed both Kingsman and Kick-Ass, um, is really good about pulling back on the darkness and kind of finding what's actually really good about the material. Like it seems like Mark Miller is really good at the ideas, and Matthew Vaughn is a lot better at the execution. But it seems like this is a case where like it's more Mark Miller than Matthew Vaughn, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, Other than that, um, I actually really enjoyed the finale of this movie. I think it's a lot of fun. I actually think I enjoyed the finale more than the church scene. Like the church scene, I think is the big thing a lot of people talk about because it's kind of one concentrated moment, and it's kind of all done in like a one shot or the illusion of a one shot. But I really love the finale when it's Eggsy and Mark Strong's character kind of trying to stop the bad guys, and they wind up blowing up all the henchmen's heads. The firework display.
That scene was actually really interesting to me. Also because that was another moment where I kind of wondered, were they filming the movies to possibly get a PG-13 if they needed to? Because I mean, like, the head explosions, the sequence was hilarious, but just from like a graphic or violence standpoint, pretty restrained.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest example of what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, because it's not like people's heads are exploding; their heads are just turning into fireworks, essentially.
Yeah, yeah. They should have had Katy Perry on the soundtrack for that, or maybe Kim Jong Un.
Maybe they just wanted to. Maybe they just wanted to refrain from having Obama's like brain matter splatter against the camera or something. I don't know. Because that happens in the movie. His head explodes in the movie.
Yep, that's very true. It's very true. I forgot about that.
Maybe America will ban this movie now.
You must have also liked the Shining reference.
Which one?
Which one? Were there multiple ones?
Oh no! I just need a refresher. I don't remember this off the top of my head.
Oh, I was gonna say the mom hacking through the door to get to
Oh yeah. You're talking about there. I was really hoping that she was gonna like, yell something through the door, but no, it was a little too tacky for
yeah.
that.
Oh, a spoiler I just remembered is that Michael Caine is totally a bad guy in this movie.
He is. That's right. That kind of came out of nowhere too.
Yeah, but I kind of like that. You know, um, I
Yeah,
feel
no,
like we haven't seen that side of Michael Caine in a while. I feel like
ever since Harry Brown.
I feel like ever since he started doing the Nolan Batman movies, he's kind of been, in the mentor role, the kindly old man. And so it's nice to see him be a mentor and a kindly old man who turns out to be one of the bad guys.
Yeah. You know, what's one moment actually that I wouldn't have minded the movie being a little more tasteless for comedy value, and this would have ruined the character to a degree. Actually, would have ruined his character flat out, but I thought it would have been the funniest thing ever. Is with the dog scene when Michael Caine tells him shoot the dog, and he's like, I can't, I'm not gonna shoot the dog. I was thinking how funny it would be if we just got a quick shot of him just grabbing the gun and just shooting the dog, just like right there, no hesitation, no nothing. It would have ruined his character. People would have hated the movie. But I don't know, just like comedy value, I felt like that moment would have been pretty funny.
Yeah, I love that joke when Colin Firth talks about how he shot the dog and then he brought it home and took care of it for years. And he's like, "What? He still lived?" It's like, "No, it was a blank." And I don't know. I think there's a lot of pretty great humor in this movie, which again, so it's a shame that the movie ends on kind of a pretty terrible piece of humor.
Yeah, exactly. Again, that final joke is just so lowbrow. You're like, what, really? This is the moment we're gonna be ending on?
And well, and so like I wonder if because like the initial joke is funny of I can't remember what she says, but basically like
I'll give you
Eggsy.
more than a kiss.
What's that?
I'll give you more than a kiss.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think like that initial joke is kind of funny. Like even though I guess like it's still kind of the James Bond sexist humor, but it's kind of like all right, he's a teenager or whatever. Like I kind of get that, but then the fact of like you know them showing it at the end, or not showing it, but kind of almost showing it at the end is like all right, that's too far. Um, and then even kind of like addressing it at all at the end,
Yeah, exactly. I didn't feel like there was any need to, or kind of like feeling. I mean, like it made the whole thing feel like, all right, this is what we're leading up to at the end.
Yeah, especially when it's literally the last shot of the movie. I mean, there's a moment during the credits. We get a scene during the credits, but the last shot of the actual movie is pretty tasteless.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So what's funny is that we go into this review being like, man, Kingsman was awesome. Like I said, we're like finding more and more things to complain about.
I know, which is okay. Yeah, I feel like I'm overcompensating because I think coming into this I was worried that I would be too positive and forget to talk about the negatives, but I think I've done the opposite. We just talk more about the negatives and the positives because I do think this movie's awesome.
Oh, it's great. It's the most fun it's the most fun I've had movies this year. I mean, it's only been like a month, but still.
Yeah, and I think if you're gonna go see a movie, gosh, I think of the movies that have come out so far this year, this is probably one of the better ones, if not the best. And it's probably the best thing we'll get for for a while.
Enjoy it while it's here.
Yeah, yeah, so I do hope people check it out, despite despite our little grievances. I think most of them can be overlooked, with the exception of that last shot because it kind of sours the whole movie. That's kind of the problem with it being the last shot. Because like I said, like the church scene worked for me when I first saw it. It was kind of like afterwards that I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, basically, like my complaints for the movie can be dismissed in one of two ways for the most part. One is that they're either James Bond or spy movie references that is kind of like, yeah, it kind of sucks that the stuff is in the movie, but we get why it's there. The other thing
Yeah.
is that most of the stuff that I have a problem with, it doesn't last for very long. I mean, like, it's mostly like a scene or a joke or two. And again, with the exception of that last joke, which is kind of it's the ending note, so it kind of sucks. But even that is kind of like you when you walk out of the movie, you're talking about it with your friends. You're not talking about that scene. You're talking about the rest of the finale and some of the action scenes and the comedy and the humor and the setups and the payoffs and all the great stuff about the movie. So there's so much good stuff in there. I think it outweighs the few negatives that are in the movie.
Yeah, because like we barely even talked about the training sequences, which are pretty great in this movie. There's a great moment when like the whole room floods. There's a great moment when they have to all jump out of a plane. There's a really great gag when they get tied up to a train track.
Oh my goodness, that
uh,
seems so good.
yeah. So yeah, I do think I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot to offer, and to be entertained by in this movie. It's just I think we didn't want to recommend the movie without talking about some of the stuff that we actually found problematic.
Yeah, because it is. It's a flawed movie, but it's still a great action comedy. And as far as R-rated comedies, even in general, go, this one is more restrained. I feel in its crassness. I mean, and it's nothing like those movies like some of the other American comedies we got like Neighbors and some of these other R-rated comedies, which I mean like they're fun in their own rights, but this is a much smarter movie than I think a lot of the stuff that we usually see coming out of these kind of movies.
Yeah,
Which was refreshing. Again, it's a very smartly written movie, which was really nice to see.
yeah. I would even say, yeah. Um, like obviously 2015 looks like it's going to be a pretty great year for movies. So I doubt it'll make my top 10, but I can tell you right now that on the short list, it's on my short list of great movies for 2015. I know there haven't been that many yet, but it's the only one so far that I've seen that's actually come out this year that I've enjoyed enough to be like, all right, I would consider this. I would put this on my consideration list.
Yeah. Basically, if you're gonna go see a movie that came out this year, check out Kick-Ass, or not Kick-Ass, Kingsman. Check out Kick-Ass too if you got time. Although Kingsman to me at least, Kingsman is a much better movie than Kick-Ass.
Yeah, yeah. Kick-Ass has a lot of third act problems that are just not good. But
yeah, but Kingsman, if you can stomach some of the stuff we talked about in the movie in the review so far, it is an excellent movie to check out.
yeah, it also makes me really excited to see what Matthew Vaughn's going to do next, because I think every movie has kind of pushed himself, and he's never really done the same genre twice. Even though like Kick-Ass is a superhero movie and X-Men First Class is a superhero movie, one's like a realistic street superhero movie, and the other one's a Marvel mutant power superhero movie. And so it's always interesting to see what he does next. I know there was rumors a year or two back that he was in consideration for a Star Wars movie. I think that would be pretty insane in like a good way if he did a Star Wars movie. Like it would definitely bring something different to the table.
Yeah, I'm loving all these rumors we're getting about these directors doing Star Wars movies because it's just conjuring up to mind, like when people do those mashups online of like, if Wes Anderson did a Star Wars movie, if so and so did a Star Wars movie, and they do like these little spoofs, but like I'm like picturing those in my head. Actually, I was like, oh man, what if this guy actually did do a Star Wars movie? It's totally different now.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that about wraps up our main bunch of conversation there. Unless you have anything else you want to say, any final thoughts about the movie or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think despite it's kind of weird thinking about our conversation how it seems like we were more negative than we thought we would be.
I feel like Dog Girl Gamer Paul's gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, Nick, it sounds like you hate the movie."
Yeah, I know. But no, I think we both really enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
Yeah, and like I said, I think it'll be. I think it's one of the few movies that's worth checking out until probably whatever comes out in April or May.
Yeah. So, again, I just kind of wish that I could have seen a version of this directed by. You're right, because then it would have tipped it from being an excellent movie to being a perfect movie.
That would actually be pretty cool. I can imagine him doing this kind of movie too.
I'm so excited for Baby Driver though. There's like knowing nothing about it, just that it's a car chase movie with classic rock. I'm like, oh man, I'm excited.
I'm very excited for that too. Mostly because just like Edgar Wright is, anything he does, you always know it's going to be unique. Yeah.
So, anyway, right. I guess that's.
Do you want to? Do you want to give people a hint to what you'll be doing next for Film Illiterates?
Well, so I teased a Pet Cemetery episode for next Film Illiterates this week. That actually, unfortunately, has been put on the back burner. We're still doing it. It's just going to have to be put off for maybe another couple episodes. But that one's gonna be great. Coming up this week, we're gonna have a different episode where we're gonna be doing the original Flash Gordon. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to this one. I think you guys are really gonna enjoy it.
I can't wait for it. Flash Gordon is like, it's kind of like the perfect movie for you guys to handle.
Yeah, exactly. And this one, and that's gonna be out this Thursday. So we're doing our Flash Gordon episode.
Awesome.
So.
And then I think, as long as their schedules all work out, next weekend we'll actually probably have an episode come out earlier than we usually do, because I think we'll be doing, hopefully, an Oscar predictions episode, and we want to get that out before the actual Oscars happen next Sunday.
That's right, man. I have like some thoughts I'm really sure of predictions for this. There are other ones that are just way out left field for me. So we'll talk more about that.
Yeah, I feel like certain things are pretty locked down, and then there are other things where it's like I have no idea.
Yeah. I still need to watch some of the movies. I still haven't seen Theory of Everything yet. I think I better get on that before it's out of theaters.
You know what's the thing about that movie though, and a couple of the other movies that are nominated for Best Picture, is that if they weren't nominated for Best Picture, I wouldn't feel the need to see them.
Oh no, yeah, well, I didn't. I mean, at the movie theater where I work at, we had it for the longest time. I was like, oh, whatever, Theory of Everything, I haven't seen it yet. But now that it's been nominated, I'm like, oh, damn, now I need to go out and go see it. Alrighty, so I guess you can find us on our website, the-letterbox.com. You search for us on iTunes by searching Outside the Letterbox on Feedburner. Leave us a review on iTunes, comment on our site. I'm just reading the stuff that Paul puts in every episode on this little thing here. If you're interested in our web series, Film Literates, you can just search that on YouTube. It'll pop up. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter. What else are we on? Are we on Reddit? I don't know if we're on Reddit. No, we're not on Reddit. I don't even know what Reddit is.
It's the front page of the internet.
Everyone says that. What does that mean?
It's I don't know.
You don't need to explain it to me on the podcast. It's okay.
All right.
So, take it easy, everyone. This is Joe, and you're Nick.
Bye.
We're done. Bye.
I guess we're done.